Salute to you all. The brave never fall. Being at peace with yourself is one of the best feelings you could ever have as a human being because you'll instantly understand and be aware and acknowledge that it is something that a lot of people strive to have in their lives, whether they realize it or not. We are all working towards being at peace. Even people who have long-term jobs and are looking forward to retirement, you can exchange that word retirement for the word peace. You just want to be relaxed, not stressed out. You get to have control, or at least more control of your day, of your life, and your time, and your energy, what you feel is important, your priority, your purpose in life. That all equals up to a small measure of peace. And everybody's small measure of peace is different. And I always thought that peace for me was being financially stable, having a nice circle of friends, having a nice wardrobe, having a nice car, having a nice job, decent relationship with whoever you're in a relationship with, being a good father, things like that. You're in general peace with everything around you. Which I guess if you look at it another way, that just means you're living life. You're just doing what you have to do to get through each day, and you're at peace with all the things that happen throughout that day. Like anything I think of, I always try to dive deep into every single thing that I feel like is important in my life. And if I deem peace to be something that is important in my life, then I have to figure out why that is. And I always urge anyone to do this. Anything that's important in your life, you should always dive a little bit deeper into the meaning of why that particular thing is so important to you, and really learn to understand it and make sure that it is actually a good fit for you. Because a lot of things we believe is a good fit for us in life that has just been a constant normal for decades for a lot of us. When you dive deeper into it, you may feel like it's not as a priority in your life or a focal point or something that you need, something that isn't adding as much value to your life as you once thought it was. And maybe at one time it did. But at this particular point in time, you always have to be present of who you are. You have to be present that you are present. You have to be present of your present self. I always think a lot of people are living life, but they're living the life that they lived 20 years ago. They never adapted to their physical change, the mental change, things that have gone wrong and gone right. If you're still the same person through all those things, then you have not thought deeply enough about some of those issues, some of those problems that you had, or you didn't enjoy enough of the success that you had. You just kind of stayed right in the middle, and you didn't really, one way or the other, the pendulum is swinging, but you're just kind of standing there dodging it, instead of going to one side or the other and kind of examining everything that makes up who you are. And I feel being at peace for me, and when I really dived into what that really meant for me, I realized it had nothing to do with money and material things, or even relationships for that matter. What it had to do with was me. It's one of the things you can do for yourself that is acceptable when it comes to being selfish. It's okay to be selfish when it comes to your inner peace. And to me, that's what the word peace means. It means you're at peace with yourself about something else that you're doing. The thing that attached to that peace is the external thing. Peace for me means internal. Now, I always believe that everybody, like any subject that anybody could bring up, everybody has a different interpretation of what that means, because it's their life. It's how they view that particular thing. I always just recommend for people that they always start inward with things that are important to them, and then work themselves out from that point. So you don't want to look at things that are too far out or far away from you, because that means you're losing control of it at that point. The further things are away from you, you don't have as much control. You don't want to be reaching for things. You want it where you can just grab it and take it and do with it as you please. And I always felt like something like peace was one of those things. It's very important to be free and accept peace in your heart, because that's where it all starts. If you have issues where your mind has taken over your body and you have been in a place for a very long time where the mind has been controlling you and your heart hasn't. There are several ways you can deal with that, but I always felt like you need to get to a place of peace. And this was one of the most difficult things I've had to try to overcome, and I still struggle with it. Because you're essentially saying, even though my mind is messing with me and is telling me all these things, and I'm replaying all these stories in my mind of things that I could have done better and the things I failed at, my heart sometimes wants to agree with my brain, and it wants to be heavy. It wants to take on all those things that I'm thinking about and then add some physical hurt to it, some pain, just to remind you that the body and the mind they don't want those things again. So it's almost like your body and your mind are trying to remind you of all those things that happen, and a lot of those things have nothing to do with you. They're out of your control. You can't go back in time. You can't change it. And you're at conflict. You're fighting with your own mind and your heart. And I remember I tried to quiet that pain in my heart with kind of, meditating and trying to manifest things and visualize myself doing things that would ease that pain in my heart. And I was successful. A lot of times I could go places and I would be uplifted and say, okay, I know my path. I got a little sidetracked there, but now I'm back on it. But over time, it happens again. Your mind, it only takes one person to throw you off, and then you go back to thinking about all the stories and all the negatives and your bad relationships, and you start doubting yourself, and then here comes the heart again. So I started thinking, okay, well, let's try something different. Let's try to get at peace in the heart first and forget about the mind. The mind, we'll focus on that later. And again, the way I approach anything, when I focus on something, if I feel like it's time for me to focus on something, I'll go all in 100% on that one thing until I have mastered it enough where it's now routine in my life and it's discipline involved, and I don't even have to think about it anymore. It's just part of my life, and I don't think about it. It's like driving a car, riding a bike. Once you learn it, you know how to do it. So when it came to the heart, I knew I had to figure out a way. When those emotions start to swell up and the heart starts to get heavy and you start feeling that heartbeat and you get anxiety, and then if you're starting to fall in love, you get those big warm swells, but they're not going to last because your mind is going to start kicking in and setting doubt in. So I started thinking, how do I become at peace in my heart? And I had to do research. I wasn't able to figure this out on my own. And there are certain things, like people always say, I have the answer to everything. I do not have the answer to everything. The only answers I have are to answers that I've experienced in life. And I've experienced a whole lot, but there are still things where I had to say, I need help. And I did as much research as I could, learning about the mind and the body, the heart in particular, how as human beings do we function with it. Is it possible to have some sort of control over the heart, which are your emotions, your core, your emotions. It's very strong. It's very powerful. Your heart's going to keep beating if your mind stops. It's very important to understand how to deal with it. And what I found was a lot of the things with the heart, even though they go hand in hand with the mind, there are things you can do to concentrate just on your heart. And you can get into a place where you look forward to calming your heart because there is a reward at the end. And that is the freedom and the peace in your heart. And once you get there, you can return there pretty much whenever you want. Now, that's not to say that there aren't days and stretches where I struggle to get a hold of it. That is true. But it doesn't dominate my life like it did back when I was younger, where I would go years with that same anxiety and pain and heavy-heartedness that I had for years. I was in such a deep depression that I never told anybody about. Such a deep depression that I honestly thought there were times I thought my heart would explode in my chest. It was just so heavy, or it would just be beating so fast. And I just hated that feeling because it was just so distracting. It causes you to shake. It causes your mind to wander even more. It causes even more confusion. You feel so out of control of yourself. The only way you can quiet it is you have to turn to something, medication, alcohol. I turn to alcohol to quiet it down. Never was an alcoholic, but that alcohol, those beers every once in a while, and those shots helped quiet it down, then I could relax. But I knew every time I did that, I was just masking it, and I could not keep that up. And then one day I would meet somebody that would help me get out of this. You know, you just keep thinking one day it'll just stop, and it doesn't. You have to work on it. And luckily for me, I worked out enough where one day I did just stop drinking, and that was it. Occasionally drink here and there, but not like I used to. And I apologize if you hear any noises in the background. I'm outside doing this one, and it's a great, beautiful day outside, and there's a lot of people out. But I want to make sure I get this message out now while all the thoughts and feelings are still in my heart and my mind. Masking your issues in your heart is one of the worst things you can do if you can help it. I do love the fact that people have the option of medicating, but one of the ways of getting at peace with your heart is really trying to dive deep into those emotions that you have that are attached to them. You cannot find out what the issue is if you're not completely free and willing to dive in there and accept the truths and the pain and everything involved. And that was the way that I figured out how to become as close to peace as close to peace as possible in my heart. Because I don't think for myself I will ever be at complete peace, because life is constantly changing and you're constantly put in new situations and you have other priorities that you have to work on. You can't just 100% focus on what you're feeling in your heart all the time, because as a human being, those emotions are all over the place. What I was always looking for were in the moments where I felt like I was out of control, unbalanced, and about to fall into a depression. I found that I needed to be able to know that when those feelings come up, there's a place I can go to forever how long I need to return as close to a place of peace in my heart as possible. And the way I did it was combining several different methods. Meditation was one of the huge ones. Quieting your mind and thinking about everything, because your mind is doing it anyway. So if your mind's going to do it anyway, quiet your mind and you just focus on whatever your mind is racing about for as long as you possibly can. But you have to take it seriously. You have to dive into it and accept the challenge that mind's going to present to you, because it's going to show you all kinds of ugly stuff. It's going to remind you of all types of ugly things. It's going to put you back in all kinds of ugly situations. But that's where you come in, because you're in control of your mind. You can take all those and now you manifest positive versions of every single one of those bad things that are popping up in your brain. You have to visualize positive things. You have to understand that you deserve better and that things will get better. You just have to remind yourself of that. But that's just a starting point. The other thing that I like to do is I like to physically exert myself. Meaning I like to do an activity that's going to force my heart to concentrate on something else as well as my mind. And there's no better way of doing that than combining the two and doing something physical. I recommend anybody, whenever your mind's racing like that and your heart is out of control and it's weighing you down with all types of emotions, go for a simple walk. And go without expectations. And when you're coming back, don't worry about how fast you're going. Don't worry about if your shoes are correct. Don't worry about how cold or how hot it is. Go outside. I don't care if it's raining. Go outside. Get some fresh air and walk. While you're walking, combine in the silence of the meditation. Start to control your breathing, which is number 3 for me, is breathing. And I do this all the time, all day. I am really big on Tai Chi and how to pull in my own energy that I'm exerting. I can pull that energy back in. It's all a mind game. I mean, obviously you can't see the energy, but you can feel it. Try to feel it. It takes a long time to figure these things out. But if you're really truly wanting to apply the techniques, you'll understand what I mean by pulling the energy back in. But really, this is all about talking about the breathing aspect of it. I just breathe in really deeply with a very, very slow 4 count. And then I breathe out deeply with my eyes closed. And I do this probably 3 or 4 times an hour, just out of habit, out of discipline. It just returns me to a state of balance every single time. It reminds me every time I do it that I'm in control of my body. My body does not control me. My mind and my body are going to work together. They may not like each other sometimes, but I'm in control. That breathing helps. So you combine the meditation, the breathing, and the walking. If you want to bump it up a notch, I would say the final thing that I do as far as what I can control when things get out of control is that I push the envelope. Meaning, for me, that's going for a long run. That means I go for a 6 to 10 mile run at a fairly high speed, and I exert myself. So at the end of that run, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, I can't even remember why I was upset in the first place. My mind and my body say, "Oh, really wasn't that big a deal," because I just overcame something that was far harder than that. And your body feels great afterwards. It says to you, "We need more of that." That's all we've been asking. We just need you to do more of that. That feels good. And then you realize, who was involved in that exercise other than myself? No one. It didn't require a car. It didn't require money. It didn't require friends, family, no one. All it required was for me to lace up my shoes and walk out the door. You can do the same for a bike ride. You can do the same for a hobby. Do something you enjoy to do, that you enjoy doing. That physical aspect of it is just something that I do. Some people get that same feeling after completing a painting, after perhaps going to a movie. I also add that in. I go to movies a lot. There may be somebody you just really enjoy hanging out with that's not somebody that you would even think that you would like hanging out with. There's people like that in my life. Like they could be a coworker, just somebody you can talk to. Everybody has to figure out their own little thing, but you know where it is if you meditate. It will tell you what that is. Ask yourself while you're meditating, what is one thing I could do that would make me feel better right now? It may not cure me of this depression or this overwhelming emotion or this anxiety, but it's something that could get my mind off of this, and it's something that will add some value immediately. And it's not drugs or alcohol. It's a physical activity that you're going to do, that your heart loves to do, and your mind is going to have to work to do and concentrate on, and is going to get your mind away from whatever it's racing about. Does it work all the time? No. But that's why you have to add it into your routine and have it disciplined enough where you're balanced out and you don't have to worry about getting into a state where it gets out of control for long periods of time. You're always going to have those weeks and those months where you're just going to go into a funk. Things aren't working out. You're going to get down on yourself. But I always love the fact that I could go back to these places anytime I want. They help, even on a minor level. It's better than not having these techniques. It's just something that I recommend. The message of this is that you have to find a way to find peace in your heart. You have to find freedom and peace in your heart. However you get there is up to you. That's just the way I did it. None of the Brave Never Fall podcasts are recommendations for you. It just shows you that it can be done. There are methods and ways for you to get to the places you want to be. But I challenge you on every one of these podcasts to find in your heart ways to do all this stuff yourself. It has to come from within inside you. Getting better and becoming at peace with yourself and having self-love and discipline does not come at a price. It takes time. It takes a lot of hard work, and a lot of people will look at you like you're crazy, because if I need to breathe, I'll breathe right in front of people. I don't give a damn. It's my life. If I feel like I'm getting to a point and I need to take a couple minutes to go get my breathing right and refocus, I'll do it in front of anybody, any place, anytime. Because it's my life. And people are going to judge you regardless anyway. You might as well do the things that make you feel great about yourself. And none of these things are easy. If they were easy, everybody would be walking around looking like the Joker with smiles on their faces. That's not true. It's very hard. I'd be lying to you if I said it wasn't. But that's why it feels so good when you start to get better at these things. You will never get better at them if you don't try to start the journey and the process to get better at them. There are so many different ways to be at peace and at freedom in your heart. And a lot of times it starts with inside of you. But you also want to surround yourself with as many people who aren't negative, who aren't dragging you down. Surround yourself with people who have some value themselves, and they're going to have that value available for you to pick at it anytime you want. They genuinely care for you. They genuinely want you to succeed, and they want you to be the best you can be in your mind and in your heart. You have to surround yourself with as many people as possible with that. And if it's only one person, then it's only one person. Be grateful that one person is in your life. Stop worrying about what everyone else is doing and how they're getting by. No one's perfect. A lot of those people are in pain and they're hurting, and they wish they could hear this message that you're hearing now. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, I suggest you share it with them, because the point of this message is that you deserve to be at peace with yourself. You deserve to have self-love and purpose and feel fulfilled, and not feel like it's impossible to be in control of your mind and your heart, because I'm telling you, it is possible. I do it all the time. And when those challenges come up, you're going to look forward to them, because you're going to always come out better than you were before you went into them. That's the way it works out. But you have to be aware of it. You have to be positive, and you have to love yourself. You have to have self-discipline, and you have to understand that life is not fair to anyone. What's happening to you is happening to everyone else. You are not alone. Do whatever it takes to find peace in your heart, to quiet your mind and gain control of your life before it gets too out of control and you won't be able to reel it back in. There does come a point of no return, and you're not there yet. You're not. If no one else has told you this today, I love you. You deserve to hear that. Salute to you all. The brave never fall.